It's my feel-good breakfast show.
A very happy Tuesday and welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso on SABC3. Now, coming up tomorrow is World Rare Disease Day. Now, did you know that globally there are around 300 million people with a rare disease, and 95% of these diseases have no registered treatment available? They're misunderstood, they're misdiagnosed, and often stigmatized as well. And so we're back again with our resident Dr. Darren Green to find out more about rare diseases so that we can better understand. Good to have you here, Dr. DG. How are you doing, man?
Fantastic, thanks.
Those are some scary stats. 300 million
Indeed,
people around the world.
yeah.
What constitutes as a rare disease?
That's quite interesting because in the different countries the definition differs. But you can imagine it's about the penetrance of the disease. In other words, how many people are infected. Like in South Africa, 1 in 2,000, fewer than 1 in 2,000 is what we use. In the UK, 1 in 50,000. And in the States, 1 in 200,000 because of the size of the population.
Yeah.
Interesting to note that, as you say, over 300 million people are affected by this, and only 50% of all these diseases actually are being researched.
Yeah, and one would think that by pure definition of its name, you can't really put a certain number to it because there's probably more of them than what we know of. But how many registered rare diseases are there?
We're looking at about 7,000 that fall into that category, and that's obviously based on a large population like the US as well. So, I mean, there are many, and there's such minor differences in some of the expression clinically in some of these diseases that are not being researched, for which there's no cure, etc. And even the prognosis of some of these is even unknown in the really, really rare cases, because we haven't had a chance to even see what happens to someone with that disease.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Yeah.
Prognosis, diagnosis, what's the difference?
Yeah, so a prognosis is your chance of survival, whereas a diagnosis is just the exact naming or categorization of the illness or disease.
Okay, well, Doctor, you mentioned earlier, like, not enough research is being done. Is that because there's no cure available or not enough people to form a study, hence funding's not?
Great question. So people want bang for buck. Pharma and research and so forth often only research things when it affects massive amounts of people. And that's what makes this so difficult. If 4 people in the world are infected with a disease and we want to find out how it works, what's causing it, what are the triggers, and how to cure it, you really struggle to find people willing to invest billions of rands in that kind of research, because some of them are really intricate, high-tech diseases.
But wait, now there's a part of me that's saying, isn't the Hippocratic Oath there to protect us in that sense, that it would encourage doctors to maybe take a stand and say, well, we won't continue doing this for the big bucks if you don't invest
for
money
the ethics and moral standing. So currently, 50% of, if you take those 7,000 diseases, for example, only 50% of those are being looked at in the world right now. So there are a lot of rare diseases that aren't even being an attempt is not even being made to actually study them and research them, because of a lack of resources and investment.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break from our discussion with Dr. Darren Green. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion about rare diseases, because tomorrow is World Rare Disease Day.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
We were discussing during the ad break now, imagine you being a family and having a child with a rare disease that has not been researched, understood, diagnosed, how devastating that might be. And so with tomorrow being World Rare Disease Day, this morning we're joined on the line by Kelly Du Plessis, who is the founder of Rare Disease South Africa. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Kelly, give us a bit of a backstory behind Rare Disease South Africa and how you came to founding the organization.
Well, Rare Diseases South Africa was really developed from personal need at the diagnosis of my son. He was diagnosed with Pompe disease back in 2010. And at the time, there was no support available locally for rare disease patients. So I suppose with going through that process and all the hurt that I was feeling, I just felt that I had to do something to make that journey easier for the next family to come along.
And Kelly, what is some of the work that Rare Diseases South Africa do or offer?
So we provide support. So that comes in a variety of forms. There's often accessing information, It's being able to connect with other families or other patients that are affected by the same thing. It's a referral network to doctors that are treating specific conditions across the country and that sort of stuff. We do a lot of community engagement, and that is raising awareness of the public. It is creating family days and opportunities for stakeholders expected to connect with one another. But my big passion is advancing access, and that really is about patient advocacy and taking patients who are affected by these conditions that have treatments available in other parts of the world and getting those treatments available locally.
Yeah. Kelly, I can only imagine the value of this work that your organization is doing for these families that are affected. So what would be your message to our viewers out there?
I think it's kind of twofold. I think for patients out there, to just know that you have assistance out there if you need it. There is a community out there who's willing to take you in. You can find your second home, and you will be embraced. We are all in exactly the same boat. But then also for members of the public, it's just to have understanding and be aware of these conditions being out there. They are real. They don't have any bias to race, age, sex, gender. These diseases affect everybody. It could be you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So just be aware of it and, obviously embrace those members of your community who are affected by these conditions.
Yeah. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us on the line, and we wish you all of the best with the work that you do with the organization Rare Diseases South Africa, and we hope that we can offer our support in as many ways as possible. Wow, that's really, really amazing to be speaking to Kelly and to find out.
What an incredible person,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
in 2013, that started through our own personal journey.
Yeah.
And the necessity and the need created, obviously, the drive and ambition for her to move forward and to have a central, database, but also a support group that's national, not just local.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a short break from our conversation with Dr. Darren Green. When we come back, we continue our conversation. We're chatting to a mom whose child has a disease called Vanishing White Matter disease. Never heard of it before, but we'll find out more after the break.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, and leading up to tomorrow, that is Rare Disease Day. We've earlier spoke to Kelly Du Plessis, who's the founder of Rare Diseases South Africa, and up next we have a caller, a mom with the name Kim Libber. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. You have a daughter, Jada Ann, who has a rare disease called Vanishing White Matter. Can you tell us a little bit more about Jada Ann and her condition?
Of course. I've actually got her sitting here with me.
Oh, hi.
So hello, mate. Hi.
Hello, Jada Ann.
Right, so she grew up perfectly. There was nothing that we pick up on, and for 18 months. And we noticed that it walked fast. All she took was a step.
Okay, sorry, Kim, we're just having a little bit of we're having a bit of trouble with the line at the moment, so we're going to try and restore it so we can get a nice and clear message and understand your story. But in the meantime, we're gonna just quickly speak to Dr. Darren Green quickly about this Vanishing White Matter disease and exactly what it is. Give us just a bit of a breakdown.
Yeah, so I mean, there's Jada Ann. There are over 40 diseases that are known to affect the white matter of the brain, and most of them are degenerative diseases. People will have heard of things commonly like multiple sclerosis, which also affects the white matter of the brain, and it's about the nerve cell itself is surrounded and insulated by a layer of a specialized protein called myelin. Which gives the brain its white appearance in those areas where you have myelinated fibers. And in her case, and in multiple sclerosis case, that white layer is being stripped away.
Yeah.
And the myelinated cells then basically start deteriorating, and that affects conduction of the signal.
Now, Doctor, you said there are about 40 of these cases. Is this around the world?
40
or
of
in
these
South
diseases
Africa?
that affect the white matter.
Okay. Okay.
In her case, Vanishing White Matter disease, I think there are only 3 in the country and 172, I think, worldwide.
Okay, I tell you what, we're going to take a break from our conversation right now so we can try and restore the caller again and speak to Kim about her experience. So, Kim, we are trying to get you back on the line, and we'll chat to you shortly.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yeah,
All right, we have Kim Libber back on the line. We're talking about rare diseases since tomorrow is World Rare Diseases Day. And Kim is here to tell us, or on the line right now to tell us about Jada Ann, her daughter, and the condition she suffers from. There we go. Kim, tell us your story, please.
Hi guys. Okay, so at 18 months, we noticed that Jada wasn't walking properly. I think the most steps she ever took was about 8 steps. And as a parent, you just know there's something wrong. So we took her to a pediatrician, and she then said to us, well, it's either two things. Either her skull isn't growing, so the message from her brain isn't going through to the rest of her body, and a fix on that would just be to cut her skull open and put a plate in. So that was terrifying enough for me. And that's obviously the option we wanted, because the other thing it could be is this terminal disease. So we went in for scans and MRIs, and it came back that his skull was fine, and the bad news was that it was this terminal disease. At that stage, they diagnosed her with metachromatic leukodystrophy. So as any parent would do, they jumped on Google and we Googled everything about this disease. Within about 2 weeks, we were in America, because for this specific disease, she could have received treatment, which was a bone marrow transplant. So arriving in the States, we got retested for MLD, and all of those tests came back negative. So we were kind of back to square one, not knowing what was wrong with Jada. So loads more tests were done, and eventually they said to us, well, the only other disease it could be is vanishing white matter disease, but there's no treatment and there's no cure. So as a family, you guys can get on a plane and go home, because there's nothing you can do except for kind of watch your child die in front of you. So that was the tricky part, was being told that your child is dying and there's nothing you can do.
Kim, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and our hearts go out to you. There are no words of commiseration that we could give that would make the situation better, but know that our thoughts and prayers are with you. And wow, Dr. Darren, so when you hear a story like this then, and you can only imagine the daily challenges that Jada Ann and Kim and the family are facing, why isn't something being done? I know it's a bit of a desperate question to you, because you're caught up in that situation right now where you know, you're the doctor that has to give this news to a family. So why isn't anything being done?
So the hard part about this is, you know, firstly, you don't even know exactly what the disease is when someone presents with symptoms. A simple example, for example, with a lot of the childhood neuromuscular conditions, is the child will just walk on their toes a little bit. In other words, they'll be tippy toes with their feet, you know, feet pointing downwards, and you'll think they're just, you know, playing a little bit. And you won't notice asymmetry of the calf muscles, for example, where the one calf is just bigger than the other, or the calves are just growing rapidly in comparison to the rest of the muscles in the body. And what makes it so difficult is that often a lot of these neurodegenerative and muscular diseases are so rare that the testing techniques are so expensive, even to do the genetic test on some of these. I mean, they had to fly to the States with the hope and thought that it was one of the other white matter diseases that we mentioned. And then the genetic test came back negative, and the testing, the blood testing. But because there's so few and because it's so expensive to actually test for some of these, it's only done at certain academic centers and world leaders in research in the world, which makes access quite a difficult problem. So the World Rare Diseases, as well as the South African Rare Diseases Organization, are trying to help people in this position with quicker answers. Some people struggle for 2 to 3 years to get answers as to where they can get an answer to what's going on. And part of the journey is parents wanting an answer to understand, what does my child have?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to ask you to just stay for one more little segment, and if you'd like to find out more, you can go to Jada Foundation on Facebook and enlighten yourself on information. We'll be back with Dr. Darren Green shortly.